Having entered my 20s with under a 20-inch vertical.
Literally, I don't know if he could touch the rim with his fingertips with no basketball or anything else.
Now entering my 30s with over a 40-inch vertical, more than double where I genetically started from. I'm living proof that anybody can become a world-class athlete through training alone, and I'm gonna show you exactly how. So in Knee Ability Zero, we spend 12 weeks just building resiliency behind the knee and inside the knee through working our way back until we can go palms to floor with full quad flex, as well as heel up, full hamstring covering the calf, an ATG split squat, because when you go to full bend, you're not only actively strengthening the muscles, you're passively strengthening your tendons and your ligaments. This explains the modern athlete who looks good, but we see an epidemic of tendon problems, patellar tendonitis, ACL tears, for example. And that's because no matter how strong you ever get your muscle, the tendons and ligaments are stronger than muscle tissue. So unless you're training to full bend, you are still vulnerable to patellar tendonitis, you're still vulnerable to tearing knee ligaments. It also takes longer. So your muscles can get more blood flow, they can respond faster. Tendons and ligaments take longer. This also explains why the greatest jumpers of all time, let's look at Kador Ziani, 50-inch vertical in dunking, Stefan Holm, 5'11", gold medalist high jumper, were the best full knee benders of anyone in their sports and able to compete for longer. And now Kador's 47, 5'11", still dunking. Stefan's in his 40s, still crazy bouncy. So maybe now my 19 to 42.5-inch vertical transformation doesn't seem as crazy when I've been the most obsessed with internal knee adaptation, actually getting world-class tendons and ligaments as their own training factor, not just muscles. Now after that 12-week base, we're gonna spend the next 12 weeks just fighting down for a 3 count and pushing back up. If you're a pro athlete, go ahead and get a Nordic bench, but know that you can get the exact same feeling from aerobic steppers, mats, and a Nordic bar. And if we pause here for a second, you'll see I found a ton of ways that everyone can work on Nordics. And if you look in the description, you can see my exact equipment list with links, so you can go right there. And I don't make a dime off any product ever. That way I can just give you my total honest advice on equipment. So you're gonna set an interval timer for 5 rounds of 1 minute, and then just try to get a 3 count. 1, 2, 3, push back up, do 5 reps, rest the remainder of that minute. When you hear the beep, go again. So you'll end up getting 5 sets of 5 in 5 minutes. Now, in dense strength, because each workout's only 30 minutes long and you have 3 main leg sessions, you can do this once a week and that will work, but you could even do this, since it only takes 5 minutes and your sessions are only 30 minutes, you could do this on all 3 sessions if this was a particular weak point for you. And you could do that with any of the dense strength accessory movements. Now this is a super important time to point out that every movement in the ATG system regresses so that anyone can do it at some level. There's 80-year-olds doing this. My mom is able to run like a gazelle at 66 years old by doing all the same movements I can do, just at different levels. In my case, for example, when I began the ATG split squat, I had to elevate 1 foot, lift my heel, and use assistance from the off arm, because I was starting with 3 surgical alterations, told this knee would never fully bend, doing exactly what it's doing right now, and it had 10 years of patellar tendon issues, not to mention my right side had more diagnosed tears, so the right side actually took even longer and was more difficult because I didn't want to have more surgeries at that point, and I wanted to figure out how to heal it naturally. So think of the ATG system, think of movements like this as learning a new language, right? By myself, without the right starting point, I could look at Chinese every day the rest of my life and never learn a single word. I would never be able to learn a single word. But with the right teacher to allow me to learn 1 word at a time, anyone could learn Chinese to some degree. We would all start somewhere, but anyone could learn a new language. But you could stare at a different language your entire life without knowing the right entrance point. Without getting started, you could look at it your whole life and never figure out what a single word means. Meanwhile, in dense, we're building even more resilience in the upper calf and lower hamstring with the slant board calf raise and the slant board Jefferson curl. While building resilience in the upper hamstring by dumbbell loading the seated good morning, as well as gradually loading the ATG split squat. while achieving world-class hip flexor length so that we can maximally fire our glutes in the third and final program progression, the standards to world-class program. This means a standard is something I know anyone can achieve, and then depending on your goals, do you want to be a rock climber or do you want to be the highest jumper in the world? We can take different parts of your body to national or world-class levels. This is the standard. 5 reps where you're starting, making a diamond shape, resting on the upper crest of your glutes. Then the first thing that contracts is your glutes, thereby bringing your torso off the bench, and then you're trying to keep your shoulder above your hip. Then you're still gonna fight down 1, 2, 3, and then I would give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds to reset. Now, let's watch a rep of me doing it along with Marty St. Louis doing it. We can see that with this, we create a strictly measurable target. And why does this matter? Because Marty St. Louis, in this clip, is 35 years old, and out of 25 NHLers in the gym at that time, he was the only one who could do the flat bench Nordic, and he's the greatest speed longevity case in hockey history. He was still leading goal scorer. He went from undrafted to winning, Stanley Cups, MVP, and again, at 35, he was still the alpha in the gym, the fastest guy, and the only one who could do this. But what we're gonna take a look at is how anybody can progress to this. Took me 2.5 years to get to my first flat one. Marty St. Louis trained these for almost 10 years. The secret is hip elevation. Myself and most of us genetic weaklings, remember the Chinese analogy? We're looking at the Marty St. Louis Nordic, we're looking at Chinese with no idea how to get there, but look, it's the exact same thing, just using gravity on our side. So I'm still gonna contract the glutes and then pull, fighting down 1, 2, 3. Now let's imagine this over considerable time, going down, down. This you'd want at the hip so that you can fire through the glutes. And what you're looking at is basically like a glute ham raise, which everybody can do these glute ham machines, but then if you can do a Nordic, you end up on SportsCenter. How do you get between? This is how we learn Chinese, one amount at a time. Consider that St. Louis did these for like 10 years, and the other 2 of the world's greatest speed transformations did them respectively for 20 years and 6 years of real hardcore training. So let's keep imagining this analogy until you eventually can do the standard. At which point, where do we go from there? St. Louis was wonderful, but what about the greatest speed transformation ever? That would be Jonathan Edwards, who won his first Olympic gold in the triple jump at age 34. What's more remarkable is that he was never even supposed to be a triple jumper. His own country wouldn't sponsor him at first because the experts on genetics and bones and muscles looked at him, analyzed him up and down, and said, it is physically impossible for you to be a triple jumper. His world record still stands. That's my boy.
You're my boy, Blue!
From 1995 still stands, and with gray hair in his 4th Olympic cycle, finally won gold. Guess what? He did Nordics once a week for 20 years, and he's in the most Nordic sport of all time. So he got himself where he had the fastest approach in history. If you're approaching the line faster than anyone who's ever done triple jump, and now he's so resilient because instead of beating up his knees, he's now protecting his knees, because every ounce stronger you are in the Nordic protects your ACL that much more. Your ACL attaches from the back of the thigh to the top of the shin bone. Every ounce we gain in our Nordic is that much less pressure on the ACL and that much less pressure on the front of the knee. So he was able to keep pulling the ground, breaking world records, winning. So nothing like this exists. There's no case like Jonathan Edwards. He did it for 20 years. We don't have 20 years. Now, what did Edwards do? Edwards would lower down. He wouldn't touch and bring himself back up. That's the elusive one. We're gonna start working on that now that we can do the Martin St. Louis standard. And Martin St. Louis himself also worked like that. St. Louis would explode up, then lower down, then pick himself back up. So let's look at how we can work every one of these angles while also bringing in the 3rd greatest speed transformation of all time. Now things get really fun. The Athletic Truth Group Nordic, because we're combining the best of all worlds. No offense is intended to Martin St. Louis, but compared to NFL players, NHL players are just not on par with the same explosion. So St. Louis did what he had to. But if you look at St. Louis coming up, it really wasn't much of a challenge for him at that point. I mean, he wasn't even drafted into the NHL, but as his career went, he may not have even been a first-round pick if he was in a sport like football. But you know who was a first-round pick? Adam Archuleta. Shouldn't have even been a football player. His trainer set up a 6-year plan. It took him about 2.5 years to get where he could do a flat Nordic. Take a look at his Nordic. Boom. Now 6 years of this, of addressing the Nordic, and the guy was doing it with weight. The problem with using a dumbbell to come up on a Nordic is it becomes very unclear in terms of strictness. It's a little too easy to cheat. Even if you look in his rep, no offense, the glutes do kind of shoot up. So I like the St. Louis Nordic for strictness. Now, how do we add load to strictness? Which obviously, if you look at Archuleta's explosion, he would have been able to do it. So here's Archuleta, a guy who shouldn't have been able to compete, ended up making tens of millions of dollars. If we hold the plate at the chest, then we can't let go. If we push off, and if the plate loses contact, well then obviously we cheated the motion. So by keeping the plate at the chest, and I will give myself a tiny little disclaimer, my hamstrings are pretty shot from shooting all this stuff. So I know I can do this, and I'm gonna try to grind it out for you. But let's look at a strict St. Louis Nordic on the way up. At chest, I want that above the pec line. So you really challenged me. Now, I'm gonna set that down. Now I'm gonna grab about twice as much weight. Now I'm honoring Jonathan Edwards, who spent 20 years once a week lowering as far as he could and coming back up. Well, I don't have 20 years, right? So I'm gonna fight this down again above the pec line. I like to hold it Archuleta style like this, so you get two hands there. Now I'm gonna fight, let it go, and pull back up. We're almost done. Now, because I do like getting to that fullest extension for the knee and the ACL, so now holding as straight as possible. All the way down. Now I take a break. That was a set. So with the ATG Nordic, we're getting the Martin St. Louis on the way up, combined with the Adam Archuleta of adding weight, still keeping it totally strict and measurable. Now on the way down, we're honoring Jonathan Edwards. But if you have 20 years, I don't even think you need a weight. But I don't have 20 years, so I can use modern science and know that safe eccentric training is gonna work better. And by nature, when you lower down and pull back up on your own, you're actually not challenging yourself as much as you should for maximum gains. You're only expressing what you can do, because by nature, if you can get back up, then you didn't challenge the eccentric enough. You see that? Now, it's very rare to find a movement where you can so safely challenge the eccentric, meaning you could hold 100 pounds on the way down and you would just have to let go of it. Whereas let's say you did 100 pounds more than your maximum on a deadlift. A lot of people would injure their backs from that. You see what I mean? So this provides safe eccentric training on the way down while still having to stop it yourself and come back up the way that Jonathan Edwards did, the way that honestly a lot of the world's greatest athletes do. Now we have a way though to get there even faster, to make even more gains. And what about them? What if you're a world-class athlete, but you're second and you want to be the best? So for the Tyreek Hills of the world, yes, he could get even more gains by using the full range of motion up and down as we do on the first and fourth part of the exercise, and then doing what he does, but adding eccentric overload to create even more resilience and more knee protection on the way down. Now throughout this process, we're working your hamstrings as hip extensors with the knees behind, ankles, deadlift to body weight as the standard, and then rebuilding the same motion one leg at a time for the world-class mark. But a deadlift is toughest when you're in the stretch position, and that's great for building up to top speed. But top speed itself has more to do with your strength in the extended position, which we're also then rebuilding to full body weight one side at a time, while at the same time being able to build measurably world-class hip flexion as well as knee extension. And even measurably precise ankle flexion to world-class levels. Because yes, your hamstrings and glutes are the most powerful muscles in your body and determine largely how fast and hard you can go forwards, at which point What matters is how strong your decelerators are. So this provides a route not only to measurably make yourself as good of an athlete as you want to be, but to measurably make yourself as bulletproof as you want to be. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions for me, send them right to me, right through the site, atgonlinecoaching.com. We have one of these modern chat boxes, so you can send a message right in. A while back, I hired one of my online members, so he's constantly working full-time for me to keep the user friendliness up to par with the training technology. He's amazing, so just send me a message right through the site. I also shot the 3 most commonly asked questions so that I wouldn't clog up this video. You can look in the description and you can see me answering the 3 most common questions I get about the ATG system. The last thing I will leave you with is, our world may not be perfect, but love and confront of our problems are the only way out. Hate and avoiding our problems will only keep us in the mud and make us go down. We can all be so much happier. We can all win. We can all thrive. We can all survive better than we currently are, but we have to stick with love. Love is the only way. Hate will burden you down. It's not the way out for us. Love and confront of our problems, gradually working our way out rather than running from them.